So have you ever experienced a moment when you're playing chess and the game just completely turns around? And it's a blunder you made, you don't really know why you made it or anything, but it completely flips around, you end up losing, you were winning before then, and now you lose the game. It's the worst feeling ever, and I felt this feeling yesterday in a rapid game. This is a little different though than you might have experienced before because I had complete control and I had mate in one and I still lost. And so it was really frustrating. I cried and everything. But right now I want to just look at the game with you guys and review it really quick. So just so you get a kind of an idea of what's going on. Alright, so here we go. So the game started out, my opponent opened with the queen's pawn. I opened with knight to f6, which is kinda, I play this opening a lot, and then I matched that with my other knight, and so I haven't moved any pawns forward. Not much is happening yet, and then bishop to b5 was a little weird. I know. It didn't really faze me. So I then moved my king's pawn and kind of want to just break the pawn chain there, and so he takes my knight with the bishop, take back, and then, I don't know, I expected them kinda to take my pawn there, and then I would have gotten his queen, which usually is, I don't know, that's kinda what I was playing at, but he doesn't, moves knight to f3, so I moved the pawn forward, kick his knight, which is another thing that I do a bunch, and right now he's starting to sort of threaten a fork, so I gotta be careful there. I moved the knight forward. I got kind of the same idea in my head. I want to play a fork too. And so he kicks me with his pawn, but this is all part of my plan and everything. Move the knight. And then, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking doing this. This is like my first sort of weird move. And I made a bunch of weird moves playing this game. But it turns around, believe it or not. And so he kicks me with the pawn. And so I move the knight down out of the way. Just don't want to be under attack by the pawn. And now I'm not even sure what's going on here with his pawn line. He's really advancing his whole pawn structure on the right side of the board. So I'm not really sure what's going on here, but he's got a plan. I move my pawn forward, and it's kind of a bad move in retrospect, but once again, I want him to take, and then I take the queen. And I don't know. The slider thing says that this is a bad move, the AI, but I feel like that's a half decent move. And so now I kick his knight, and eventually, I don't know, I want to take the rook in the end, and so I'm sort of advancing towards doing that. That's a decent move. Knight to g4, and just getting it out of the way there, possibly threatening a fork eventually. And so I kick him again with my pawn. I want him to move out of the way so I can kick his rook. And instead of moving his knight, moving it to safety, he kind of knows what I'm doing and kind of saves the rook a bit. And so that's a decent move too. I take, right now, I feel like I'm starting to get a significant advantage. Takes my pawn, but that's not really that major, because what I'm going to do here, I'm going to move my bishop to e5 and kick the rook. And so moves the rook to safety. I castle just because I wanted to get out of the center and everything. And so this is sort of, I know, I'm starting to get a little on edge, feel a little threatened, but I do that because then no matter what happens, it would be a fair trade. I wouldn't be losing material. Queen to d3, which once again is a valid move, but I feel like as soon as I back up my f5 bishop, I'm going to be putting pressure on that queen. I do this just because I feel like maybe he'd just blunder and I'd take the queen, and it doesn't happen. Keeps advancing that structure there, which I sort of expected, honestly. I move the bishop back. I don't know why, honestly. I don't really see any problem there, but he takes. So right now, it's starting to fall apart for me a bit, honestly. And it's like he's starting to get an advantage again. So I check queen h4, and now I have to deal with moving the queen out of the way. There's limited spaces, but that was sort of my best option. And now things are getting better for me. And so I move the queen e5, threaten the knight eventually, and going to try to get a skewer with the queen and the bishop, or even a fork. There's a bunch of things I could do from here. And of course, though, I don't want him to take my rook and promote, and so I do that. That was sort of a blunder, honestly. That basically makes the whole game even again. But once again, there's a few things I can do here. I chose sort of the worst option, took there, and then ended up, I don't know if you could call that a trade, but that's what I did. And now his queen is forward, and I'm starting to feel threatened here. But I take there. I should have, in retrospect, taken with the queen. I don't know what I was doing, but I wanted to maybe get the fork and then move the queen forward. And so I take, and then now my queen's being threatened, but right now something's happening that's like really scaring me all of a sudden, because as you can see what's going on, he has a mate in one. If I make the wrong move, I'm under threat right now. You know, I wanted to, I was really tempted to take the bishop, but that would lose me the game, so I didn't do that. I instead go queen e3 and get the check, and now this is where things get really bad, really embarrassing, and really sad. He moves the king. I am getting closer to mate, and right here there is one really good move that I could have made, and that would be bishop to e4, and I'd be getting just way closer to doing what I need to do, and the game would be mine. The game was already mine. And then the worst thing possible happened to me. I was playing on mobile, and so that's sort of a mistake in the first place. But I pushed on the queen, and all the squares lit up, and then I was going to push on the bishop, but I wanted to tap to the side just to be careful. I ended up tapping on the h6 square, and that was the game for me. I started, even before he got the mate, I started sobbing. It was the worst thing because I was invested in this game. We're going for 20 minutes just nonstop, back and forth, and I had the win. I can't believe it. It's the most frustrating thing.